guys today, and is there any kind of deal being made with the opposition?
We're having very productive conversations with all opposition parties. As I said earlier, I had laid out several weeks ago the list of bills that we needed to get done, the work that had to be concluded in order for Parliament to rise. We're making very good progress towards completing that list. So we're having good conversations with the opposition parties about the possibility of wrapping up, finishing that, but those conversations are ongoing at this point.
Do those conversations involve the government agreeing to a public inquiry?
Look, I'm not going to get into the details of the conversations at this point. They are ongoing, and it's important for those conversations to continue to move.
Mr. Blanchet, excuse me, just said that the parties have agreed to a public inquiry that's going to be announced within a few days. Are you saying that's wrong?
I'm saying that it's not my place to say that what I'm trying to do as the House Leader is to go back to that list that I was talking about several weeks ago of legislation that we needed to get done. We've been working hard to do that, and now we are at a point where we're very close to the conclusion of that list, and we are having conversations about how we can wind down this session of Parliament. But the specific details of what we're talking about, I can't get into. Yeah, I mean, there's the option of us going to Friday. There's the option of concluding tonight. There's the option of concluding tomorrow. This is all part of an ongoing discussion right now, so it's a little bit.
You can't actually just say.
Well, the problem, and I'm sure you can appreciate this, is that when we're discussing with opposition parties, things change, and so you think things are one thing, and 5 minutes later you find out there's something else. So it would be just frankly irresponsible of me at this point to say anything where we're at, because it's in a constant state of movement, and it will set a lot of expectations. So if you can appreciate, I'm trying to be judicious in what I'm saying here. I think it is I can say very clearly that those conversations are very positive, that they are that a lot of the obstruction that we're seeing is moving away, and that we're having really constructive conversations about concluding the session and getting the work that Canadians expect us to get done.
But that might change. It seems like you're saying I don't want to.
Well, look, I've done this. I've been in a House leadership role for 5 years, and we spent a lot of time talking with opposition parties. And I know that there's been many instances where I was very convinced that something was going to happen, and then there's a change at the last minute. So I don't want to put myself in a position where I say something is confirmed when it still has the possibility of movement. We're making good progress. I expect that in a very short order we'll have more to say.
But there is no deal at this point, is what you're saying?
At this point in time, all we have is discussions. There is nothing that is firm. Thank you very much.
And the transfer of Paul Bernardo, were you surprised that the Commissioner or any of those acting agencies heads did not bring up the transfer?
First, as I said, I personally found out on May 30th, which is when I contacted the Commissioner of the CSE. There were communications between the Correctional Service of Canada and various departments, including mine at Public Safety Canada, regarding the move of Paul Bernardo. The most important thing is that, first of all, that going forward that we put victims at the center of these decisions, and that's something that I have addressed in the new instructions, which will be forthcoming. Secondly, that in order to be sensitive to victims' families like Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French, that where there are dangerous transfers to medium security institutions, that are given the heads up. Currently, there are constraints around that in the law, but we've got to address that.
Sur l'ingérence étrangère, M. Blanchet vient de dire que votre gouvernement est à l'approche d'une entente avec les partis d'opposition, qu'une enquête va aller de l'avant, qu'il y aura une annonce d'ici les prochains jours. Est-ce que vous pouvez confirmer que vous entendez avec les...
Je suis optimiste. Il y a des progrès qui est le résultat des échanges entre mon collègue, le ministre Leblanc, et l'opposition, y inclure le Bloc québécois. C'est très nécessaire qu'on arrive à un consensus qui va gérer le processus public, et les prochaines étapes vont inclure le plus important, les Canadiens et Canadiennes.
So is that a public inquiry? Is that a public inquiry then?
I think that's
when is happening?
I think that is a very fair question that we hope to arrive at a consensus with the opposition on. We've always said since day one that a public inquiry would be left as an option on the table. From where I sit, and based on the experiences that I had throughout the course of the public consultation on the Foreign Agent Registry, it is important that we navigate sensitivities when we talk to Canadians, particularly diaspora communities, who are often the target of foreign interference, so that we create a safe and secure atmosphere where they feel like they can be forthright on how to create this tool, as well as potentially other tools to protect our institutions.
Est-ce que vous accepteriez un autre rôle au sein du cabinet si on vous retire vos fonctions à la sécurité publique? Que vous seriez prêt à aller ailleurs autour de la table?
Mais écoute, tout le monde travaille à la plaisir de le Premier ministre. Ça, c'est la définition de le job. Mon focus, c'est de bâtir sur le progrès que j'avais déjà fait, par exemple, sur le sujet des armes à feu. C'est une très bonne chose, c'est un exemple, c'est des preuves concrètes qu'on avait adopté le projet de loi C-21 avec la grande majorité des partis.
Il y a eu des débuts, il y a certains de vos collègues qui pensent que vous n'avez plus votre place là. Qu'est-ce que vous leur répondez?
C'est la décision du Premier ministre. Moi, je mets le focus sur le job. Et il y a beaucoup des autres progrès qu'on avait fait, par exemple, le livret d'assistance humanitaire à les victimes en Afghanistan. Il y a aussi un autre projet de loi qu'on avait adopté, ou presque là, sur le renforcement des sanctions à les acteurs hostiles qui viennent de, par exemple, l'Iran, la Russie. Donc, il y a beaucoup de choses encore à faire.
How many times did you meet with the commissioner? How many times did you meet with the commissioner?
Okay,
How many times did you meet with the commissioner?
Who wants to go first?
Between March and June 2nd, when you made that statement, how many times did you have a phone call or a meeting or any interaction with the Commissioner of Corrections Canada?
What I can tell you is we do have frequent briefings. We have briefings, but what's clear is that I was not personally briefed about the Paul Bernardo affair until
Sorry,
May 30th.
how many times did you talk to her, though, between March 2nd and June 2nd?
We meet periodically.
What does periodically mean? Every week?
We meet periodically, so we meet on
Every
an
month?
as needed basis.
So
Rika, the most
2 calls, 5 calls, 10 calls?
We meet probably about once every week, once every 2
And
weeks.
she didn't mention it to you once in all those times?
That's precisely right, and that's
How
why.
is that possible? How is that possible?
Well, it obviously is an issue which I've addressed through the new ministerial direction, which requires her to brief me in the future on the transferring of dangerous offenders
But what
like
do you
Paul
talk
Bernardo.
about if you don't talk about that?
The French and Mahaffey families, they say that they were that the lawyer for them says that they, the federal government, your government, tried to ask them to pay $19,000 in legal fees for them trying to get information they wanted from the federal court to prepare for a parole hearing. You say you want to be more victim-centric. Is that a victim-centric approach to ask them to pay that fee? The judge later lowered it to $4,000, but they're still being asked to pay for those legal fees on behalf of them.
Well, look, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to reach out to the representative for the families, Tim Danson, because this has been a difficult moment for them, and the decision to transfer Paul Bernardo to a medium security institution, no doubt, has caused them a lot of trauma, and I thought that the humane thing to do would be to have a conversation with him to express my support and my compassion, and to assure him that identifying the challenges that you have all been asking around in terms of information flow, in terms of how it is that those decisions are take into account victims' rights, is exactly the focus that I put on it. I didn't waste a moment when I found out. I reached out because I had a very strong instinct that the reaction that you now see playing out would be the ones that would be expressed by the families of Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French. So to correct that, and I think this is what demands responsibility in the job. You have to identify where the problems are and find a way to solve them, and that's what I've done through the ministerial instruction.
How is it possible? How is it possible? How is it possible on the commissioner? Minister, on the commissioner, how is it possible you met with her every other week and you never spoke about Bernardo?
Mr. Blanchet just said that there seems to be an agreement between parties and the government on a public inquiry, and that an announcement is imminent. Can you say anything about that? Maybe
well, I look forward to any announcements that may come.
That is it true? Are you in agreement? And are you willing to let the opposition have their say in who would chair that inquiry? That's what they're saying.
The things that you're asking me are not my decision. I think there are important conversations taking place, and Canadians want the issue properly examined, and we're working through it.
The NDP is proposing to increase the firefighter tax credit from $3,000 to $10,000. Is that something that your government would support?
Listen, we're looking at all the different ways in which we can acknowledge the important work that volunteer firefighters do right across this country. There are close to 85,000. They serve their communities. They serve their communities well. They have been an important part of Canada's response to the wildfires taking place. I took the opportunity with the Prime Minister just this past week to go to Nova Scotia. We went to Halifax and to Shelburne in order to thank those firefighters, and we're looking for every way that we can support them.
But you can't confirm if an inquiry is going ahead?
No, I can't today.
Okay.
This is for the families and of course the submersible team, the explorer team.
What can you tell us about the noises that there's reports of underwater noises that a Canadian plane picked up? What's the deal there?
Well, there have been sounds that have been picked up, and that just means that we will continue to double down and to figure out where the submersible is and how it can be brought to the surface safely.
Do you know anything about what the sounds were, like the nature of them?
I can't speculate on that. I know that we're focused on finding and rescuing the submersible and the explorer team.
On entend qu'il va y avoir un remaniement ministériel cet été. Vous avez l'intention de vous représenter aux prochaines élections?
Okay. Pardon?
Are you running
Yeah.
again?
Non, je suis candidate pour le Parti libéral pour Vancouver Quadra actuellement.
Pour les prochaines élections
Oui.
aussi?
Oui. Oui, je suis candidate. Yeah.
Do you have any sense of how long the search would last, or it might be called off?
I'm not going to speculate on that either. We have every chance to find and rescue the submersible, and we'll keep working to do that.
Can you talk about the costs associated with this? Canada's putting forward a lot of effort, resources. What kind of costs are associated with this? And I know there's still a search going on, but I guess people are questioning, is an adventure excursion that's gone missing? Can you talk about the costs associated?
Well, I don't have information about the cost, but from my perspective at this point, that is irrelevant. We are going to do everything that we can, which is why so many assets, 3 Coast Guard ships, naval assets, air, we need to do everything we can, and we are in partnership with the leads on this, which is the U.S. Coast Guard. We're going to keep working on it, and that's what matters, is that we have a chance to find this submersible and bring people to the surface. And that's what we're going to work towards.
You said that you have hope. What piece of evidence or what have you heard that's giving you hope that they might still be alive?
You know, I think we have to retain hope as part of what we're doing as a human community to find the explorers and bring them to safety.
Is this a safe expedition for individuals to go on? Like, what are your thoughts on the fact that this is even an offer and that people can go on an expedition like this?
Yeah, I'm not going to speculate on that. This is something that has been done before, and of course there are dangers in exploration. I mean, mountain climbers, rock climbers. Exploration does sometimes is accompanied by danger. So, but our focus is on getting the ships in place, getting the equipment in place, and with the deep sonar on the John Cabot, it gives another tool to potentially find and bring back the submersible. And we're all intent on doing that in time.
Unlike mountain climbers, for example, who go missing, in this case, you do have an awful lot of Canadian resources that are going towards trying to find these individuals. You said that the cost is irrelevant. For you, why?
I think there's nothing that too much. We just need to do what we can. These are human beings. These are human lives, and we need to do what we can to save them. So, yeah. Thank you very much.
Est-ce que vous attendez à ce que C-18 passe la troisième lecture au Sénat aujourd'hui?
Je l'espère de tout cœur. Ça fait un bon bout de temps que... Oui, on a... tout d'abord, je veux remercier les sénateurs pour leur travail. On a accepté 10 des amendements sur 12. Le seul qu'on a refusé, c'est simplement parce qu'on veut garder une flexibilité pour les négociations. Donc, j'espère de tout cœur, parce que je l'ai dit souvent, vous avez environ 500 salles de nouvelles qui ont fermé leurs portes au cours des 15 dernières années, puis c'est assez là.
Est-ce que vous attendez des représailles? L'amendement de Julie Ville-de-Chêne était quand même équilibré. C'était quand même de reconnaître que le partage des liens apporte aussi une valeur aux médias, que c'est pas seulement à sens unique.
Oui, mais il ne fallait pas limiter. Tout ça apporte des valeurs. Ça, on le sait, puis j'ai répondu à cette question-là en comité devant le Sénat. Mais il faut garder cette flexibilité autant que possible, parce que tout le projet de loi est basé sur un mécanisme de négociation. Alors, moi, ce que je voulais comme ministre, c'était d'être le plus loin possible de ça. Donc, essentiellement, le projet de loi, c'est comme mettre une table dans le milieu, les gens doivent d'un bord, les médias de l'autre.
Est-ce que vous attendez à ce qu'il y ait des représailles une fois adopté, une nouvelle vague de représailles, ou c'est du bluff ce qu'ils vont faire, Meta et Google?
Moi, écoutez, ils savent très bien que ma porte est toujours ouverte. Mon équipe a discuté avec eux cette semaine, autant avec Meta qu'avec Google. Moi, je suis prêt à les rencontrer également. C'est une décision d'affaires, mais il faut comprendre qu'ils font beaucoup de sous aussi au Canada. c'est un marché qui est important pour eux. Donc,
mais est-ce que ça serait considéré comme des représailles au sens de la loi? Il y a quand même un article dans la loi qui dit que les géants du Web ne peuvent pas entreprendre des représailles envers des médias qui tentent de négocier des ententes. Est-ce que le fait de ne pas publier les articles de nouvelles, ça serait comme des représailles au sens de la législation?
je ne veux pas commencer à interpréter mon propre projet de suite, là.
Mais c'est ça qui n'était pas clair.
Voulez-vous rester ministre du patrimoine?
Oui, j'adore ce que je fais.
Est-ce que vous avez les priorités pour l'automne, là? Est-ce qu'il faut, d'après vous, mettre, on entend que
faire des bonnes choses.
Mais logement, coût de la vie, pensez-vous qu'il faut insister un petit peu plus sur ces messages?
Mais ça demeure les priorités du gouvernement. C'est les priorités. Si vous regardez le dernier budget, là, coût de la vie, avec les rabais pour l'épicerie, avec les soins dentaires, c'est clairement, c'est attaqué au coût de la vie, c'est le logement, c'est le...
Ça a été assez bien communiqué. We're hearing about trouble this summer. Do you think it's the right timing? Well, do you think it's a time maybe for a little reset, revamp before the fall?
That's way beyond my pay grade.
Yes, I know that, but do you think it would be a good thing to maybe get things freshened up towards the next election?
Well, that's a decision entirely in the prerogative of the Prime Minister, and he hasn't shared his opinions with me.
In your view, is there what should be the priorities regarding the fall? Talk more about cost of living, housing. What's your take on what's coming?
Well, my own view is that we have to come to ground on our relationship to China. I think that's an existential threat to our nation. And on the cost of living, that's all dependent on inflation. I don't know that there's that many other policy levers you can use other than the ones that have been used. And possibly by this time at the end of the summer, we'll have had some success either by consequence of geopolitical issues, by good luck, or by policy decisions. So we'll see where we end up.
On China, do you think that it was not satisfactory what was done? Like you guys
We've actually come to ground on the societal implications. This is not just politics. This is way beyond politics and also way beyond partisanship.
Thank you so much.
Vance, can I ask you about this situation where the AFN chief of Ontario don't think the Métis Nation of Ontario ought to get self-government at this point?
Well, I think the most important part right now is that we're all working together. AFN, the government, and most importantly, the communities that are affected, especially in the west end of the country. So we're working very hard to accomplish that.
You've seen some comments from folks in the Manitoba Métis Federation and some folks in the Temagami First Nation that say there's no Métis in Ontario.
Yeah. So we're working on that, but the key is that we actually work on it together. Okay. And it's all about co-development, it's all about self-determination, and we want to ensure that's the priority.
Bonjour. Est-ce que le français est en déclin au Québec?
Pardon?
Est-ce que le français est en déclin?
Ici, aujourd'hui, on est là pour arriver à Ottawa. On commence notre travail. On a fait des belles partielles dans plusieurs régions au Canada. Puis je suis vraiment hâte d'être ici à mon premier caucus avec mes collègues.
Pourquoi vous ne répondez pas? Madame Gaillet, est-ce que vous voyez au Conseil des ministres?
Aujourd'hui, je me vois au caucus du gouvernement. J'étais très fière d'être au caucus du Québec aujourd'hui. I was thrilled to be at Quebec caucus this morning, thrilled to be here to meet my new colleagues, to be joined by David, who fought super hard in Oxford, and Ben Carr, who also brought a seat in Winnipeg. So it's great to see you all, and we're very excited to get to work.
The Conservatives accuse your team of using racist tropes to try to defeat ARC in Canada. That they say is the most racist campaign they saw that your team ran against the Conservative candidate. What do you think about that?
I think it's a bunch of baloney. We actually ran a very, very good campaign, very strong, super team that we had in place, had so much support from riding MPs close by and their teams. It's pretty good when you can bring up the best results in the last 30 years for the Liberals, and I'm just thrilled that we accomplished so much in Oxford County, and we are going to keep moving forward.
Pourquoi ne pas répondre à la question si le français est en déclin au Québec, Madame Gaillet?
J'ai des collègues ici aussi qui m'ont parlé. Je ne suis pas la seule.
Hi, everyone. On pose à vous la question.
Est-ce que le français est en déclin ou non?
I'm hearing. I heard a question from the back. Sorry. Est-ce que le français est au déclin au Québec?
On a une question pour Mme Guéné. Est-ce que le français, oui ou non, est en déclin au Québec? C'est un mot.
Pourquoi ne pas répondre à nos questions?
C'est à Ben le tour de la question.
Non, c'est nous qui choisissons les questions.
OK, merci.
Donc, vous ne voulez pas répondre? Vous êtes confortable au fait qu'on écrive que vous ne voulez pas répondre?